Welcome to The Explainer. Let's jump right in, shall we? Imagine this. What if your absolute deepest, most terrifying phobia was actually a memory? But not from this life, from a life you haven't even lived yet. It's a pretty wild thought, right? Well, today, we're going to explore some stories that seriously push the boundaries of what we consider reality. In this explainer, we're cracking open four incredibly distinct, chilling case files drawn straight from classic historical records and investigations. We're going to break down the facts, the timelines, and those lingering, unresolved questions that honestly still keep investigators up at night. Here's our roadmap for today's deep dive. First up, memories of a past life. Then, a fugitive brought to justice. After that, we're looking into justice for Pedro Santiago, and finally, vanished in the tornado. All right, case file number 1, memories of a past life. So picture a guy named Bruce Kelly. He's a successful medical supply sales manager, but his day-to-day life is literally paralyzed by these crippling phobias of water and enclosed spaces. After traditional therapies completely failed him, he got desperate and tried something a bit controversial, past life regression hypnotherapy. And wow, the results were mind-blowing. Under hypnosis, Bruce didn't just have vague, blurry feelings. He started dropping incredibly specific details. He claimed he was a World War II sailor named James Edward Johnston, who died on a submarine called the USS Shark. He even named a crewmate, Walter Pilgrim, and gave his exact birth month, February 1921. Now, here's the crazy part. When investigators actually checked historical naval and civilian conservation corps records, it was a perfect match. The sub, the crewman, the dates, literally all real. Now, look, we aren't here to confirm or deny reincarnation, but you got to admit the alignment of these facts is absolutely fascinating. Driven by all this, Bruce actually traveled down to Johnston's real hometown of Jacksonville, Alabama. And this is where the puzzle gets so much more intricate. Bruce sat down and verified these deeply intimate, everyday details with Johnston's actual living cousin Betty, who, by the way, Bruce had already named under hypnosis as a little girl named Elizabeth. Bruce correctly remembered that Johnston always ate the heel of the bread loaf. And he remembered that he always used the back door to go into his house because he grew up feeling like a quote-unquote second-class citizen. Think about that. These aren't historical facts you can just pull from a library archive. These are lived, deeply personal experiences. And tragically, Bruce also remembered the horrifying end to that lived experience. Tracking the actual historical timeline, Johnston enlisted in the Navy back in 1940. Bruce recalled with terrifying clarity that on the night of February 11th, 1942, the alarms started blaring. Depth charges struck the submarine. He remembered it rolling, taking a direct hit. Bruce recalled being trapped in a rapidly filling, enclosed corridor with Walter Pilgrim, just knowing there was absolutely no escape. According to the regression, both men drowned at exactly 11:34 p.m. And you know what's incredible? After processing this trauma through hypnosis, Bruce's phobias completely vanished. It leaves us with one of the most compelling historical mysteries on record. So while one man finds his answers buried deep in the past, how do we find justice in the present? We're going to leave the paranormal behind for a second and step right into a fast-paced, high-stakes true crime case. One where the threat was incredibly real and incredibly dangerous. Case file number 2, a fugitive brought to justice. For 12 agonizing years, a woman named Julie Cooper was trapped in a religious cult out in Missouri. She was constantly abused by the leader, an ex-police officer named Nelson DeCloud, who manipulated his followers by actually claiming he was a son of God. But in September 1992, the break finally happens. Julie pulls off this daring escape with the help of a visiting electronics repairman named Tim Santi. The second she goes to the police, an arrest warrant is issued, but DeCloud catches wind and immediately flees with his loyal followers. The breakthrough? It comes from TV viewers 500 miles away in San Angelo, Texas, who happen to spot DeCloud's wife. This single tip sparks a massive, coordinated farmhouse raid by state and local agents, and DeCloud is finally overpowered and taken into custody. $25,000. That was the staggering bail amount set for DeCloud right before his November 1993 trial for rape and sodomy. And remarkably, his devoted cult followers actually managed to scrape it together, releasing him right back out into the public ahead of the trial. Honestly, it just goes to show you how terrifyingly deep the psychological grip of this cult really was, and the massive stakes Julie was up against. Despite all that terror, Julie's resilience is absolutely the anchor of this story. She later said, "I feel confident now that I can have a normal life after seeing him caught, knowing that it can be done." It's just such a powerful, defiant statement of resolution.
And to add a bit of a silver lining to this nightmare, Julie eventually got engaged to Tim Santee, the exact same guy who helped rescue her in the first place.
Now, justice came swiftly for Julie Cooper. But what happens when an entire community is just left weeding? Let's shift gears and look at a really heartbreaking crime in Chicago, where closure has proven painfully elusive. Case file number 3, Justice for Pedro Santiago. 11-year-old Pedro Santiago Jr. was the absolute pride of his close-knit Chicago family. We're talking about a 5th grader, a stellar student, and a really talented black belt in karate. But on December 12, 1990, everything just completely shattered. Pedro had just called his mom from school to make plans to play with a friend, and he left his house right around 3 p.m. Moments later, literally right in front of his own home, he was struck by a black Oldsmobile. The impact caused massive head injuries. His parents barely had enough time to kiss him before he was rushed into emergency surgery. Pedro fought through 10 agonizing days in a coma, but tragically, he passed away the day after Christmas. What makes this so much worse, and really illustrates the sheer callousness of the crime, is the eyewitness account. You see, the driver didn't just panic and instantly bolt. He actually got out of his car. He saw exactly what he had done. An eyewitness reported that the man started cursing, hitting his own car in frustration, and then, making a conscious, deliberate choice to run, he jumped back into his Oldsmobile and sped off. He even drove right past a witness who was already on the phone with 911. Frustrated by the police investigation hitting a wall, Pedro's grieving father literally took to the streets, tirelessly investigating local bars himself, and he actually uncovered a primary suspect. The profile points to a man known on the street as Cachimba, real name Geraldo Gonzalez. He's described as a Cuban immigrant, about 5'8", weighing around 160 pounds. Bar patrons told Pedro's father that around Christmas time, Cachimba had borrowed money to flee Chicago, telling people he was in big trouble with the cops. The trail went cold, with suspicions that he might be hiding out in New York, Florida, Michigan, or elsewhere in Illinois. He left an entire family shattered, just waiting for closure. A single moment, a single awful decision by one person can shatter a family forever. But what if the cause of a tragedy isn't a person at all? What if it's nature itself? That brings us smoothly to our final and honestly, perhaps most baffling case file.
Case file number 4, Vanished in the Tornado.
Okay, set the scene. It's the spring of 1947. A massive telephone operator strike has left the isolated town of Woodward, Oklahoma, completely cut off from the outside world. They had absolutely no idea about the monstrous danger heading straight for them. On the morning of April 9th, locals noticed this weird, ominous red tint to the otherwise calm sky. That evening, a massive twister slammed right into Woodward. It leveled the town, injured over 1,000 people, and killed more than 100 in just a matter of minutes. Survivors flooded into this chaotic, makeshift hospital. Among the victims brought in was the Croft family. The father was severely injured, the mother, Cleta, was tragically killed, but their 4-year-old daughter, Joan Gay Croft, survived with a wooden splinter pierced through her leg. But here is the mystery. By the very next morning, amidst all the confusion, Joan Gay was just gone.
In the immediate chaotic aftermath of the storm, Joan Gay's Aunt Ruth found the children hunkered down in the hospital basement. Knowing their mother had passed away, she was forced to make an incredibly agonizing decision. She later recalled that heartbreaking moment, saying, "The poor kids, I gotta tell them Mama's gone, and that was just heartbreaking, so I didn't let on like I even do." Basically, to keep these injured, terrified kids from totally panicking, she lied. She told them she was gonna go look for their mom. But when Aunt Ruth returned the next morning, the nightmare somehow got even worse. Hospital staff reported that sometime during the night, 2 unidentified men came in and specifically asked for the Croft children. They literally picked Joan Gay up and carried her away into the night, claiming they were transferring her to a bigger hospital in Oklahoma City. But here's the thing, calls to every single hospital in the region turned up 0 records of her arrival. Aunt Ruth even went to the horrifying extreme of checking all the unidentified bodies at the local makeshift mortuaries. But none of them were Joan. She had completely vanished. The family launched a massive search, bringing in the FBI and local authorities, and it went on for decades. They always held on to the hope that whoever took her kept her safe and alive. If she survived, she'd be an adult today. Let's remember the details. Back in 1947, she was just 4 years old, with blonde hair, blue eyes, a mild lisp, and she would very likely still have a distinct scar on her left calf from that flying tornado debris. The mystery of who those 2 men were and why they specifically targeted Joan Gay Croft in the middle of a disaster remains completely unsolved to this day. So, we've explored past life visions, a daring escape from a cult fugitive, a tragic hit and run, and a little girl stolen in the chaos of a storm. If these case files prove anything, it's that the truth really is out there. But are we even looking in the right places? Thank you so much for joining me as we decoded these incredible stories. Keep asking questions, keep looking for answers, and I will catch you in the next explainer.